morning for those who have joined already. The numbers are growing fast. Thank you for joining us this morning. Just to make sure we're all in the right place, this is the One Group's webinar for becoming a menopause-friendly employer with Deborah Garlick of Menopause in the Workplace and myself. My name is Catherine Wallace and I'm Head of Operations at the One Group. Deborah, thank you for joining us. We're very pleased and grateful to have you. I'm going to do the sort of filling in bit for a minute or so whilst we watch the numbers grow. This is quite a well subscribed webinar, so we've probably got around about 150 joining us this morning, which is fantastic to see such interest in this subject. So for those of you that don't know the One Group, I know we have a lot of people on this session that have joined previous webinars and seminars of ours, but as we have such a large number, I'm sure there are some of you that aren't that familiar with us. So the One Group's actually a recruitment business. We have 7 specialist divisions going from engineering and IT across to sort of all the back office functions, finance, HR, marketing, etc. Please do have a look on our website if you're interested in having a chat to us at any point. This webinar is part of our Beyond Recruitment series where we look to engage with our clients and potential clients on all things related to people, talent, teams, and generally the growth of your business. Actually, a lot of the webinars we do tend to be about retention and how to hang on to your people, which is ironic, as actually we would love to recruit for you, but it's all about being in partnership. So hence providing this sort of added value stuff and hoping that you enjoy it. So Deborah, thank you for joining us. I first kind of became familiar with you when I watched you do your session with the CMI. And I think the content you're going to do this morning is fairly similar to that.
It's fairly similar, Catherine, and thank you to you and the One Group. It's been amazing talking to you and over these months and deciding on today, and fantastic that you're getting everybody talking about menopause. So thanks to you and the team for all that you're doing
both in
this session and beyond to get people talking about menopause. So it's an absolute pleasure to be here today.
That's great, and I mean it's such a hot topic at the moment, and it's gathering such momentum. We've wanted to do this for a while, and it's just been about finding the right speakers. So I was chuffed when I saw your previous webinar. I thought, this is the woman for us. You know, you're talking our language, so this is great, and we're so chuffed to have so many people joining us. You know, normally webinars get between sort of 60 to 80 attendees, and we've got well over 150 this morning. So obviously, you know, the word is spreading.
Hot topic indeed. And after today, as we've discussed before, this is the start of the journey. So after this session, we'll be able to send people some extra information to help them along their journey. And you're quite right, this is such a hot topic. And of course, we've just passed the World Menopause Day, which was on the 18th of October. It was the most exciting World Menopause Day ever. I don't think you could have opened a social media channel without seeing menopause coming up, certainly LinkedIn, which was unusual. I think some people were surprised to see how much menopause was going on. But if we look at some of the information that came out around that time, I think the statistics that surprised me, one of those statistics was that 1 in 5 employers are now doing something for their colleagues. And I say it surprised me, pleasantly surprised me. The journalist phoned me up and said, isn't it awful? Only 1 in 5 employers are doing something. And I said, well, actually, I think that's pretty remarkable. If we go back 5 years, nobody was doing this. And 2018, as you know, the CIPD ran their survey and said, no, who's actually doing this? And the results back then came back 1 in 10. Now we've had COVID in the meantime, and you know, I don't know what planet you were on if COVID didn't affect your business or your organization in some ways. So I'm delighted that we've got from 1 in 10 in 2018 right through to 1 in 5 in 2021, with that sort of 18 months of COVID chaos going on in the meantime.
you know, even the word itself is becoming far more widely used, isn't it? And that sort of stigma, that kind of awkward, oh my God, this makes me sound old feeling, is really starting to kind of disappear, I feel. So yeah, it's brilliant that people are talking about it so much more. And I'm sure we've got lots of people here that have joined for different reasons, maybe because they want their organisation to be more menopause friendly, or perhaps they're just interested in the support that they can get and expect from their employer. So and maybe just some personal interest as well. And pleased to say we have got a small sprinkling of men that have joined us as well. Unfortunately, the ratio is very much in the favour of women, as you'd expect, but obviously with so many male leaders in the business world, it's great to see that there's some kind of responsibility and, you know, interest and support starting to kind of appear in that demographic too. So because that's important.
And of course, Catherine, we are leading the way in the UK. I know before we started this webinar, I was talking about my night job, which is yesterday. It was a sort of a midnight session for Australia, India, and the US. And they're all looking in at the UK and saying, what's going on? How are you doing that? What can we do in our part of the world? And because so much of it is about changing our mindsets, as you quite rightly say, you know, the word menopause means to so many people all of the negative connotations of the symptoms and getting older. But we'll explore that today. So what I'm planning to cover is why we're talking about menopause and why now, what's different, why is it becoming so important in the workplace. Then as we discussed, I'll do a step-by-step what people can do in their organizations, drawing on the best practice from the employers that have already got started on this. So hopefully by the end, people will be able to have a very good conversation with whoever it is in their organization, whether it's themselves or another person, to say, this is why we need to get moving on it if they haven't already. But also take some notes around what they can start to do so that they can get their route map of from now to, you know, at the end, where menopause is easy to talk about in their organisation and support's available. So if it's a bit like, then come back to questions at the end. I know you're going to keep your eye on chat, so we do encourage people to please do let us know what you want. This session is for you. It's not just a talk. We want to hear what your thoughts are and what your questions, and if something's getting in the way of you starting this in your workplace, let us you know, put that in chat and let's discuss what you can actually do.
So if I can just say one last piece before I disappear off screen, if I can encourage people to use the Q&A function for any specific questions. When Deborah's finished her presentation, I'll reappear and read out some questions which Deborah can answer for us, and it's easier if we can see them all in one place. So we will use the chat function, I'm sure, for links and polls and, you know, any sort of commentary and thoughts that you have. But if there is something specific that you want discussed at the end, we'll make sure that we leave some time for that, and we'll look for those questions in the Q&A. So if you could help us out with that, that would be brilliant. But I'm really looking forward to this. I'm going to turn my screen off and sit back and enjoy, and I will reappear at the end. So Deborah, over to you.
Thank you very much, Catherine. So just to summarise, I said, why are we talking about menopause? Why now? We'll talk about some menopause facts, but it'll kind of be that amount, because actually what we're talking about today is what you can do in your organisation and how you can plan to become a menopause-friendly employer. I'll tell you more about that shortly. And then we will look at questions and next steps. And the document that I'm going to be talking through, we're going to be sending this to you afterwards. So this will be your step-by-step guide. So I did say take some notes, but there'll also be the opportunity for you to do a self-audit within your organisation. We do appreciate every organisation is different, and certainly that's what we've seen from the hundreds of employers that we've supported, both in the UK and internationally, that understanding where you are now and where you want to be is so important. But every organisation is different. Everyone has a different leadership style, a different culture, different ways of doing things, different job roles within that organisation, different types of work. So it is a unique experience, but this checklist enables you to focus on the key areas that can make a difference in your organisation. So thinking first of all about the roadmap, and then what we have mapped out on this slide is that there is now an accreditation program, menopause friendly accreditation to be precise. And I just wanted to confirm that following this roadmap would lead you towards applying for accreditation. That's something that you want to do. So the menopause friendly membership, the two work very, very closely together. But before that, I just wanted to do a quick poll to understand where you are right now. I mentioned earlier that research says that 1 in 5 employers has already started to do something in this space. So can you just share with us where you are right now? So I'm just going to launch that poll. And to answer your question, Thomas, thank you for putting that in the chat. Is there a country that is leading in this area? And the answer to that is very, very strong. Absolutely. So if I can ask you, have you already started your menopause campaign, and what have you done already? So while you're filling that in, I'll just finish the question or the answer to Thomas. The UK is absolutely leading in this space, with 1 in 5 employers now already taking action, and so many pledging through the Wellbeing of Women Menopause Workplace Pledge. If you saw that with the Duchess of Wessex, that was launched around World Menopause Day. I think 2022 is going to be the year of the menopause. On top of that, of course, you may have seen again in October that the Menopause Support Bill had its second reading in Parliament, a very successful reading, and there is going to be a change in the cost of HRT prescription. So it would dramatically reduce, which will help so many people who are struggling with their menopause, but not able to do anything because of the price of prescription. So that's going to change. And what we're also going to see in 2022 is a huge amount of focus on menopause. So firstly, we will see on International Women's Day that this year's theme is Beat the Bias. That's the stance that we'll all be taking photographs of ourselves and doing. Beat the bias. Now, of course, Catherine mentioned this right up front. Menopause has had a very negative stereotype over decades, and it's time that we faced into that. So I'm pretty sure that we'll see a lot of people beating the bias around menopause. So let's just see where we are then, who we've got on the call today and what you've already done. So have you started your menopause campaign? So yes, that's well over 1 in 5. Some of you haven't started yet, a third of you haven't started, and for some of you it's on the radar, so good news, you're in the right place. So what have you done so far? Created a menopause policy, 1 in 4 of you have, or guidance document. I'll come on to that. Some of you have started training your occupational health and HR, that's a really good start, and started to get people talking about menopause, engaged your colleagues. 1 in 3 of us have done that. So I'll stop sharing that right now. And I did say that at the start of this session, we would focus on the why. Why is this important? And I'm going to use the 4 reasons that came out of the Government Equality Office report, which was published in July 2017 with Professor Joe Brewis and the team. So looking at these, some of them are stronger than others. So I'll highlight the ones that are really compelling for organisations. And the first one is the demographic case. Now, the demographic case is very, very strong. Menopausal women are the fastest growing workforce demographic in the UK, actually in the global north, if we want to be talking globally here. And that is going to continue. Now, why is that important? Well, it's important in understanding the different time that we're in right now. And if we go back in time to around about 100 years, or to the early 1900s, women tended to experience menopause around about 57. Now that's as far as good as we can get from records that are available then. Of course, there wasn't a lot of research around at that time, but as far as we can tell, women tended to experience menopause at around about 57 and died on average at 59. There would, of course, been people much older than that around at the time. However, it perhaps gives us some explanation why people think of menopause, and Catherine mentioned it right at the beginning, as much older than it is. And because back in the day, it was thought to be something that came towards, started at around about the end of a woman's life. So, you can understand people thinking they're experiencing menopause symptoms, maybe it's the end, start of the end. Whereas today we are in a different time. We tend to experience menopause on average, that's the one day in time, at 51. We can live on average to be 83, and of course that'll vary wherever you are in the UK, but on average around about 83. And we stand a 1 in 6, 1 in 7 chance of living to be 100. Now that is a dramatically different picture to 100 years ago. It's not towards the end of a woman's life, it's actually closer to the middle of a woman's life. And here's the extra thing. This is why this is a generation first, if you like. More of us are in the workplace. 8 in 10 menopausal women are in work right now. And when you start to appreciate that if menopause happens at around about 51, and more of us are working until our late 60s, maybe even into our 70s, if you speak to some of your HR colleagues, you could be in work for 20 years post your menopause. And of course, if you're experiencing symptoms, or if we know that people consider leaving during this time because the symptoms on top of bigger jobs, more of us are in senior positions, greater responsibility than ever before, and sometimes something's got to give. So it's important for employers to take menopause seriously, because a lot of their colleagues will be experiencing it, and it can get in the way of them being at their best in work, or even worse still, actually leaving as a result of their menopause. Which brings me on to the business case around this. Now, I mentioned earlier that some of these ticks will be stronger and have more evidence behind them than others. So if I take the big ticket item, first of all, retention and attraction, I just mentioned that for so many women, they consider leaving work during their menopause. And Bupa's research that came out around World Menopause Day said 900,000 women have actually left during their menopause. Now, there's no time frame on that one, but what we do know for sure is 1 in 4 women consider leaving work as a result of their menopause. That came from the Wellbeing of Women charity, our charity partners. That was released in 2016. So, considering leaving work is really, really costly to an organisation, because we don't know exactly how many have actually left in the last 12 months or the last 24 months. But this is the cost to employers. We know from Oxford Economics that it costs around about £30,000 to replace somebody that leaves your organisation. And that's not just the cost of advertising, it's the cost of bringing them up to speed, induction, getting them to the same performance level as the individual that is actually left. And of course, leadership time. But that is for £30,000 is for somebody that's on £25,000 a year. So imagine the cost of replacing senior people within your organisation. It's very costly, both in terms of losing talent and financially. And I did mention earlier about the demographics. We are in an ageing population. And any HR person will tell you that the talent pool is shrinking. It's not easy to replace talent. So the best thing to do from a financial perspective and organizational success is to hold on to the talent that you've got. So retention is probably in that list, I would say, is one of the biggest ticket items. Avoiding people leaving your organization. It also says attraction, because I know since June last year, we've seen employers putting in their job adverts that they are a menopause friendly employer. Now, thinking I'm a menopausal woman, if I was choosing between one or other organization, I'd choose the one that was menopause friendly, because I know that they would understand if menopause hit me like a bump in the road, that they would be there to provide the support to help me continue my career. So that is a really big one. Supports or improves performance and motivation. We all know that looking after the well-being of our colleagues and having a diverse and inclusive workforce is good for the bottom line too. And this is one of the other big ticket items, reduces employee relations and tribunals issues, which brings me on to the legal case. Now, we often have people saying, you know, we need to change the law about menopause, but to support menopause in the workplace, and we probably do. The Menopause Support Bill will be focusing next on support in the workplace. But menopause is already covered by employment law. And I've focused here on the Equality Act 2010. Menopause is also covered under the requirements of the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974. But menopause is covered under Discrimination Act, and it's covered under the protected characteristics of age, sex, and even disability discrimination. Now, I just want to be clear on this point. Menopause itself is a life stage. It is not in itself a disability. However, symptoms can be so severe and over such a period of time that under the Equality Act, they can be considered as a disability. So it's worthwhile bearing that in mind. And I think as the Menopause Support Bill comes out, you know, fingers crossed, and there are a lot of people that are saying, actually, menopause could be the 10th protected characteristic, just as maternity is right now. And under the Equality Act, compensation is uncapped. And what do I mean by that? Employers can be fined if they don't comply with the Equality Act, or they lose a tribunal. So this could be a very, very big bill. And it's not just the employer that could get that fine. There's also a personal responsibility. The line manager can be named, or an individual can be named within that organisation. So just to look at that for a moment, what we've seen with employment tribunals, and I know I'm talking to a journalist yesterday, I know there's another big story that's running about menopause tribunals. We are seeing an increasing number of tribunals coming through. And so being case specific, it's not good for your employment brand if you're caught out at a menopause tribunal, because there are not that many just yet. So you can guarantee that you'll have a fair airing in Google if anybody puts menopause tribunal if you lose. So we're seeing more and more and more employment tribunals coming through. And that's only the tip of the iceberg, isn't it? Because, you know, how many grievances are there as a result of menopause going through as well? That'll be something that we can't quantify at this time. And, you know, the only way to win at a tribunal is not find yourself there in the first place. Even if you win and you don't place a fine, it's so stressful to go through those, and, you know, very distracting for the amount of preparation that needs to be done behind the scenes. So that is the third case, the legal case. And this next one is my favorite, the social responsibility case. Now, the social responsibility case is probably why the vast majority of employers are taking action around menopause. Yes, the other three reasons, the demographic case, the business case, and the legal case, are very, very compelling. But the majority of employers are doing this because it's the right thing to do for their colleagues, whether that's creating a diversity and inclusion in the workplace, or looking after the well-being. And there's something new about this, because we know we are anticipating that there will be changes in law. How long will it be before menopause policies are law, just in the same way that maternity policies are? So I think those employers that are taking action now have the benefit and the appreciation that their employment brand is looking after their people, considering the well-being of their people, rather than, if the law changes and menopause policies become law, doing it because you've been told you've got no choice. So I know which sort of employer I'd sooner work for. And think about your own position. Will your employer take action now just because it's the right thing to do from a social responsibility, or wait till the law changes and you're told you've got no choice? So they are the 4 compelling reasons, and we'll send you some further information on those. So if you've got to have a conversation with your finance director, or put in a pitch for some budget to do some changes, personally, I would say that the vast majority of the campaigns that we've seen cost very, very little. As a programme, menopause campaigns are a win-win. They're good for colleagues and they're good for the business. They're good for the bottom line. They cost very little to do. So if you were working this out as a cost-benefit case, I can assure you that this is something that will pay off every single time, and quickly. So they're the 4 reasons why it's important to take menopause seriously. And I'm just going to cover a little bit about menopause. I did say this is a little bit menopause light. I'd love to talk to you about it for the next hour. But if I draw on our experience from running training sessions within organisations, and we do this all the time, I think in November alone we'll have delivered 100 training sessions within workplaces. And actually, and Catherine touched on this right at the beginning, the mindset around menopause, the lack of information around menopause is quite remarkable. And it's not the sort of the detailed information, it's actually the ages. Catherine mentioned most ages, something that is a negative mindset around menopause. People always think it's a lot older than it is. So ages, stages, symptoms and ways of managing menopause are really what workplace conversations can focus on, not necessarily or certainly not from a medical point of view. We wouldn't expect any employer to look at this in a prescribing way. But this isn't just lack of information about menopause isn't just something that happens in workplace, it's society wide. But actually, I think we can all thank employers that are taking action for helping to change mindsets around menopause and busting some of those myths around menopause that still exist. But looking at just some of the key fundamental facts, menopause itself tends to happen between the ages of 45 and 55. In the UK, on average, it's 51. It can be much later than that as a result, or it can be into the 60s, excuse me, but that's less often. But it can be significantly earlier than that too, whether that's as a result of surgery, for example, a hysterectomy or an oophorectomy, or naturally it can occur at any age post-puberty. And I know the youngest woman that I've met was 17 when she experienced menopause, and those that experience surgical induced or early menopause tend to require extra support, both emotionally and medically too. So it's much earlier than many people realise. I think we are getting through with this one actually, in terms of menopause being at the prime of our lives. 3 in 4 of us experience symptoms, but that is a wide range of symptoms. So in that 3 in 4, you'll have those that sort of say, I get a hot flush now and then, but it's no big deal. It doesn't get in the way of me enjoying my life or my work. I know how to deal with it. I layer up. Through to the 1 in 4 who can feel completely polaxed. And I've already mentioned those that experience surgical or induced menopause or early menopause, and maybe some of those are the ones that experience the most problematic menopauses and need more support from us. So, you know, that is a large number of people that could be experiencing menopause symptoms and them getting in the way at work. And I'm just going to focus on, or I'm just going to mention this because my Choose to Challenge this year for the International World Menopause Day theme was something that I'm always seeing, and it says menopause affects half of the population. I just want to dispel that myth, and because menopause affects us all. We can all experience the symptoms of menopause, whether that's half of us that experience it firsthand, but the other half experience it through our relationships, whether that's with a partner, family member, friend, or colleague. And I'm flagging that because we are doing a lot of training with workplaces that are predominantly male. And some people think that is quite unusual. But if I think of one of the train operating companies that we've supported now for a few years, and a conversation with one of the drivers who was saying before he takes a train out, he has to sign a form to say he's fit and well rested. But it was very difficult for him to fill that form in and sign it in good conscience when he'd had a difficult night's sleep because of his wife's menopause. And his comment to us was, there are some shifts that he works on where he can't sleep with his wife because he doesn't get enough rest to be able to sign that form from a health and safety point of view. So do consider others in this conversation. We have some younger adults and males joining us today, but I know this is a very, very inclusive conversation. And another one, this is key, particularly something from the lessons learned from tribunals. Everyone's experience of menopause is different. We will all experience different symptoms, we will all have different medical histories. We will all have personal preferences on how we manage them. So some people might want to go through the medical route, changing lifestyle, herbal approach. We will all be different on that. And that's important in a workplace because it's not a one size fits all. When you start to appreciate that everyone is unique, you can understand and appreciate the importance of line managers' conversation. And I say this is lessons learned from tribunals, because some of those tribunals that have already happened, the reason they've happened is because people have made assumptions about menopause and not appreciated the individual in that. And this is still enduring, although I do hope this is starting to change. The majority of those experiencing menopause do not talk to their line managers about it. And that is something that is absolutely essential that we do change. So there's some of the key menopause facts. And I'll just ask you to put in chat, what's your thoughts? We did some research with the TUC. This is back in 2018. And we said to women, which symptoms affect you most at work? Can you just put some comments in chat to tell us which symptoms do you think women said affected them most at work? Leave that for a second. It may not be the ones that you think it is. Thank you. Wow, look at that. Memory loss, tiredness, fatigue, brain fog, tiredness, hot flushes, bladder issues. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing that with me. And actually, you're spot on. We expected, and there was 4,000 people, just shy of 4,000 people that filled in this survey. And we were surprised when hot flushes didn't come top. But the verbatim said things like, I know what to do about a hot flush. I know to layer up. I know to sit near a source of ventilation. I can get a desk fan. But what I wasn't expecting was the focus and anxiety, the brain fog, you've got them all there, the fatigue, the difficulty sleeping, during this time. And the real importance of understanding this is when you see those symptoms, you can really understand how that can chip away at somebody's confidence in the workplace. And this is the extra bit. I keep saying that the average age of menopause is that 1 day in time. But actually, symptoms can start years earlier than that in what's known as the perimenopause stage. And that is the most mysterious phase of them all, because actually you do not get notification that you are entering perimenopause. It may not be hot flushes or changes in periods that show up first. And I know from our experience, we run so many training sessions for colleagues, and they come along to the sessions thinking, I'll go to this because menopause is probably on the horizon for me. And then when they start to see the range of symptoms, both physical and psychological symptoms, you can see there's a light bulb moment going on there, that actually it's not on the horizon for them. They might see some of the symptoms and say, well, actually I'm experiencing that one, and I'm experiencing that one, and I'm even getting treatment for that one. I had no idea this could be as a result of my menopause transition. So it's really important to sort of make sure that people understand the range and be able to put those reasonable adjustments in place. The vast majority of reasonable adjustment are small things and very, very low cost to do, but can make a world of difference to somebody that is experiencing menopause symptoms. And as I say, we all want to avoid people leaving work unnecessarily as a result of their menopause. So thank you very much for sharing your thoughts around how this can affect somebody. And just a little bit of a recap. The good news is not all of us will experience all of those symptoms all at the same time. In fact, it's unlikely that we'll experience all of those symptoms. If you look at the statistics, 1 in 4 say they don't experience symptoms at all. So, predominantly we're looking at the 3 and 4 who do experience symptoms, the 1 in 4 who may need extra support from us because their symptoms can be prolapsing, can be really severe during this time. Symptoms usually last between 4 and 8 years and can change over time. So again, highlighting the need for those individual conversations, because if somebody's experiencing symptoms, you put reasonable adjustments in place. The symptoms may change, they may get better because of the reasonable adjustments, or they may abate anyway. But do keep those conversations coming. But the bottom line is the one that I think is most important on this slide, because this is where good understanding, good knowledge and support comes in place, because we meet so many people who are really struggling with menopause, and so many who say, actually, that 1 in 4, that's me right now. I'm getting to the stage where, I don't know, may have children still at home, may have caring responsibilities, may have a big job at work, and then along comes menopause, and they may not know how much they can do to actually change their experience. So it's fundamental and key to menopause support to help people understand the range of options that are available, not making prescriptions or telling somebody what they should do. That's actually down to the individual, but there is so much that we can all do. So that was why we're talking about menopause, a little bit of a menopause 101. But now let's look at what you can do in your workplace to change the experience and to create that environment where it's easy to talk about menopause. And if somebody is struggling with symptoms, they know that you're there to support them and they know what support's available. So I'm going to be using this checklist now, but as I say, don't worry, we'll be sending this self-checklist on to you so that you can decide yourself where your priority areas are. Now, number 1 on this checklist, is it clear how your organisation supports menopause at work? Now, I mentioned earlier that it's not law to have a menopause policy yet, but it is best practice. And the reason it's best practice is because it's a document that can help people understand that you consider this important and how you'll provide support in the workplace. Now, it's less important what you call it, Some people will go with policy because they have policies for everything, and if they didn't call it a policy, nobody would particularly pay attention to it. Other organisations, because they only have policies for the things that are law to have policies, have guidance documents, and some organisations have fact sheets. The content is generally the same, and there were some great examples there that the content is generally the same. Why it's important, facts about menopause, what support's available in your organisation, and signposting. But what's also key is that you do have it in place. Whether you're adding to an existing policy, for example, a wellbeing policy, diversity and inclusion, that you've got something in place that you can signpost to, that it's easily accessible. And if the independent panel are always talking about, is it regularly communicated? You know, so often we meet people and they say, my organisation does nothing. They're probably off on the day that the organisation talked about their policy. So you need to be communicating it until everybody understands that it's there. Think about the individual that's perhaps struggling with menopause symptoms, may not have been to any of the sessions before. If they can go to your intranet and put menopause, and a document comes up that says, you know, this is what you can expect from us, then that will be really reassuring to enable them to have that conversation with a line manager, or a line manager that suddenly gets a meeting in the diary that says, I'd like to talk to you about my menopause. It's very reassuring to them to know, as an organisation, you've already thought about this, and they can follow your guidance, policy, whatever it is, to support their colleague, their team member. So that is number one. Number two, creating a culture where menopause can be talked about openly. Let's talk about menopause. Easier said for some of us, and I'm saying that because, you know, for me, obviously, I talk about menopause every day and have done for years. So it's very easy for me to talk about menopause. However, there will be people in your organisation who it's not that easy for them to talk about menopause, whether that's because they think of this as a personal, sensitive matter. As Catherine said earlier, some people might be worried that what people will think about them, that you think they're coming towards the end of their career. There might be a mindset thing going on there. They may not want to talk about it. Or actually culturally, and I know, you know, we understand the culture around the world, but actually in the UK, we have cultures too. So if I think about the work that we've done in some parts of the UK, perhaps, for example, Bradford, where they have a very high Asian community, who culturally it is even less likely to be talked about at home. So you do need to have a thorough communication campaign. Some people may be pretty quick to start saying, actually, I'll happily share my menopause story. But for others, it will take some time before they're happy to open up about it. And that's not just the individuals themselves, you know, that's line managers. You know, if I think about the training that we do with line managers, and we always ask the question, what do you know about menopause? How comfortable do you feel to talk about it? Well, line managers aren't born with menopause knowledge. It is something that does have to be trained in. But, you know, a little bit of training, and they can get to a point of understanding their role in all of this, and understanding enough about menopause to be able to have a conversation about it, to broach the subject, to recognise what reasonable adjustments would be important. Now, every organisation's communication campaign may be different. You'll have different communication channels in place right now. But some of the things that are key and that work particularly well in getting the conversation going is engaging senior leaders, particularly if they're happy to share their story. And I know we've opened many conferences with the CEO or somebody from the board saying, this is why it's important to me, or this is my experience, or this is the experience I had in supporting my partner or a friend, colleague, etc. So really getting them behind this, because getting senior leaders to talk about that gives everybody permission and encouragement to talk about menopause. And, you know, think about where people get their information from now. Is it a staff magazine? I'm not sure if those still exist anymore, actually, but is it on their intranet? Is it through a newsletter? Can you, so many organisations now have Yammer groups set up, which is like Facebook within organisations, or they have a menopause cafe, or they have support groups, and so many of those starting to spring up. And that's really helpful for getting people to open up about their menopause or feel confident talking about it in their workplace. And to be fair, shared stories work particularly well. I think I'd probably be a multimillionaire if I had £1 for every time somebody said, I thought I was on my own. I thought it was just me. And it's a relief to understand that, you know, it's not just them, or some people say, gosh, I thought it was me. I thought I was going crazy. It's reassuring to know others experience this too. And if you know, they can share their stories and their experience, it starts to chip away at that taboo or stigma. So do encourage colleagues to share their story, whether it's personally through a support group, or so many will be confident enough to say, actually, I'd be happy for you to share this in our company channels. And we always say, encourage some of those people that might change mindsets about menopause. So younger adults, men talking about menopause, as well as menopausal women sharing their experience, because it helps get the message across that this is a fully inclusive conversation. And there are 3 dates we always recognise a year, which are good times to talk about menopause. I've already mentioned International Women's Day, the 8th of March, and the Beat the Bias. So that is starting to look, that's starting to ramp up. So expect to see a lot of communications going on around March. There's there's Menopause Awareness Month in October, and 18th of October every year is Menopause Awareness Day. So that is another key milestone date. There's also May is Women's Health Week. So we do tend to see a lot of menopause conversations going on there. So in changing the culture, in creating a culture where it's okay to talk about menopause, it may take you a few goes to chip away at some of those taboos. So get your conversations and your drumbeat going around menopause, and you'd be surprised. I said, you know, sometimes it's easy for me to say, let's talk about menopause, but not always easy for an individual to do. But you may be surprised who joins in the conversation. And you may be surprised, as Anne's comment earlier said, that, you know, she was surprised how quickly the culture changed within their organisation. And training. I was delighted earlier to see that somebody had started doing the training with their HR and occupational health. And the value of training is fundamental to a good menopause campaign. But one of the things that we often find is we often get people coming in and saying, can you do a training session for our colleagues? And we love doing those. But one of the things that we're very mindful of is doing the training for the colleagues and making it more comfortable for them to talk about menopause is one thing. But what's the colleague experience if they then go back to the desk and want to talk to their line manager about this, and they look like a rabbit in the headlight because they haven't had training on how to have the conversation around menopause or what would be helpful? And then for that matter, if the line manager then goes to occupational health and HR and they've not been trained either. So we recommend that you consider all of the different audience groups in putting your campaign together, and you start with whether you have menopause champions or ambassadors or advocates in your organisation, that you've got HR and occupational health skilled up or checked in with them, and for that matter an EAP provider, that you've done some training with your line managers. It doesn't have to be a massive amount of training for line managers. We know we can take them to feeling confident within an hour or an hour and a quarter of having that conversation. They don't know what they don't know, so even just explaining the fundamental facts around menopause is reassuring and empowering. And then look at all employees, so you've got all of your support in place. So we know those sort of training programs work best. So I've covered off in more detail those top 3 boxes because they're the ones that will have the most dramatic effect within your organisation. But I'm just going to touch on the last 3 boxes. And one of those is, what is the existing support already in your organisation? Check in with your EAP providers. We know some that are absolutely brilliant in this space. You know, I'm thinking of organisations that put the likes of, say, for example, Bupa have got GP on call who've had specialist training on menopause, or PEPI menopause, or the Menopause Centre. So many EAP providers are dialing up on the menopause support. Some others that we've found, and we do have a little bit of a list of them, haven't done anything on this yet. So they probably need to catch up. So what is the support that you're giving your colleagues around menopause, and just checking in what's already available, doing any extra training, or maybe even looking at something to add on to the service there. Menopause friendly workwear. Now, obviously during COVID, that has been leggings and a nice top for many of us. Many of us don't wear uniforms when we're working from home. But actually what's been inspirational is how many employers have actually changed their workwear. And the one that I think is most famous for it is HSBC UK. They ran a trial with their colleagues, and they changed their uniforms to be of a more breathable fabric and a more comfortable fit, and then rolled it out. And this is the other good thing. They didn't just roll it out to those of us that were experiencing menopause, because of course that would have mean people could say, well, actually, isn't that the menopause friendly uniform over there? They rolled it out to everyone. So that's important, that everybody gets to see, or doesn't stand out. And I say that because we had one organisation and their uniform was generally pink, blue, but actually they had a pink variety for menopause, which was kind of embarrassing for anybody that didn't want everybody to know and broadcast that they were experiencing the menopause, and there they were wearing the menopause uniform. So thinking about uniforms within your workplace, and if you can't go to the expense, although I would say HSBC said that it was easier than they thought it was going to be. Their provider was really up for the changes and really supported them in that, so they rolled it out gradually. But you know, if you can't get the new uniform in place, part of your uniform, Sainsbury's have introduced a new blouse that is more breathable than the one they used to have in store before. And I saw this wonderful image on social media, and somebody was wearing it, some people were wearing this, and they said you can put the heating on now, because before they used to bake in their blouse, but now they've got one that is more breathable. But like, if you can't change your uniforms, think about, can you make more garments available? Thinking here of some of the NHS hospitals that we support, and you know, they'll have to have a national uniform review for anything to change. But actually what they've done in the meantime is said, if you need to change your uniforms more often, appreciating it takes time to dry, and appreciating you've got one drying, another one that's that you're wearing, that if you're experiencing hot flushes or flooding incidents, they are allowed to order extra kit without saying it's because of my menopause. So, you know, think about uniforms as part of this. And workplaces can make symptoms worse. Hot temperatures, excessive stress, noise came out actually in that survey. We were quite surprised at that. But ability to take time out if possible, or appropriate breaks, or make adjustments as and when. For that vast majority, there will be small things over a short period of time. So that's number 6. So I've taken you through each of these, and when we send this to you, print it off and you can tick which areas you think you need to focus on, and that'll give you the opportunity of focusing where it's going to make the biggest difference. Because as I say, every organisation is different, but the key areas of focus are absolutely the same. So I'm just now going to launch our second poll, which is, which area do you think you need to focus on within your organisation? We can always put some resources together to send out to you if you can tell us what it is that you think you'll need to focus on. So thank you. I can see everybody's voting now. I love this. Love the voting on Zoom. There you go. Everybody's results are coming in. And I'll share that very shortly. We are probably about neck and neck with policy or guidance documents. No need to start from scratch on those ones. Actually, there are some remarkable best practice ones and some guidance on how to write them. training line managers, occupational health, engaging our employees. So predominantly in the top 3 of those boxes. So I'll just leave that for 1 second more. I think that's slowed down now. If I just share the results with everyone, as you can see, policy or guidance documents. Now, just a couple of things on that. A little bit of a hack, if you like, because in some organisations, policy documents can take a long time to develop when you consider the stakeholders, if you've got to engage your unions with this or etc. So many organisations put guidance documents in place while they're developing their policies. Very similar content. Usually guidance documents are written in a softer language or more plain English. So yes, it's always it's always a good idea to put a policy or guidance document in place. Engaging colleagues, absolutely. You have 3 prime opportunities next year, and bearing in mind the menopause support bill will be in the papers again, focusing on workplace. And for those of you that saw the Davina McCall programme, the next one comes out in May, and it is focusing on workplaces. So a really good idea to get something in place before then. And of course, training line managers. So thank you very much for filling that in. And Catherine, are you there? Do we have any questions?
I am here. Hello.
I've got a video lined up, but I can play that right at the end. It's 90 seconds if we have time.
Yeah, well, let's just have a look at the questions then, because we have had a few come through. I was just looking at the time and wondering how much time we'd have to run through them. So I don't know whether you can see these as well.
I can.
So if we just have a look at the top one, anonymous, love to know how to support not only the immediate colleagues going through menopause in the workplace, but colleagues around us that might need a different type of support on this topic, and what resources are available to them, partners, sons and daughters of someone going through the menopause, and also transgender colleagues who could need support throughout their journey. Well, that's an interesting one that we haven't kind of covered or probably hasn't been thought about hugely. So, yeah.
It's a really good idea, and it's something that we cover on all of our sessions actually, because when we talk about menopause, what we're talking about is symptoms as a result of significant hormonal change. Now, if we boil it down and think of ourselves as human first, there are others that can experience those. And so it's important, is one of the things that we actually encourage employees we're working with to consider the broader context. So the hormonal transition for men, for trans, for those that are experiencing fertility treatment, for those that have hormone treatment for symptoms, for illness. So not only is this helping to getting people talking about menopause is good from a diversity and inclusion point of view, but we also encourage employers to think of the content from a diversity and inclusion, because trans journey, cis females can experience a lot of difficulties during their transition and menopause, but also so can cis men during their hormonal transition if they choose to transition using hormone therapy, for example. So absolutely essential that you do consider the broader context. There's a change in, if you like, preference language. When we look at policies these days, there are those, and I'm thinking of the Lancet that was referring to people with uterus or people with ovaries, etc., or those that are all women. We tend to say use a language that is more inclusive and less gendered. So use your language in terms of first person. So we tend to refer to women when we're talking about, like when I say 3 in 4 women experience symptoms, that research was only done on women, but actually the style with both policies and training is to use we, a much more inclusive language and not over gendered, considering the fact that others can experience these symptoms as well.
Yeah, it's a really good question, a really good point actually, isn't it? So it's good to hear. And actually it was something that I'd thought as well, in terms of sort of the large number of women that we had signing up to this, and we had far fewer men, and I still see we have got some men, so thank you for joining us as well. But actually, most men have got wives, brothers, sisters, daughters, etc. So it's very much a human kind of interest, isn't it, rather than just work, because actually certainly these days, work-life balance, etc., you want people to be happy at home and at work and for it to blend nicely. And actually we, you know, that sort of feeling of supporting each other, you know, it should blend across home, work, family, everywhere, shouldn't it? So so as you said in your presentation, it touches everyone, you know, it's not just for women, is it?
No, it's not at all. And we've got a question here. What is the most reputable global organisation we can connect with to demonstrate our commitment to menopause to our colleagues? That would be Menopause Friendly. And also I can send you a link to that one. And also the Wellbeing of Women, who are our charity partners, actually, their Menopause Pledge. So we can send those out. Now, globally is a tricky one. Because both of those are particularly focused on the UK. The rest of the world has got a lot of catching up to do, as Thomas mentioned earlier in his question. The UK is significantly leading in this space. We're about 5 years ahead of the rest of the world.
Good to know. Well, not good in some respects, but yeah, good that we're doing so well and that we're up there. So final question, where policy and guidance documents can be found?
Well, can be found. Well, Menopause Friendly membership has a library of them, and they're all different. So one of the things that I'm always keen not to do is I often see people saying, download my template. It doesn't work. Organisations are too different for you to download a template and add your name into them. It's more important to understand where your organisation, so anybody can get in touch with us at Menopause at Henpicked, and I'm happy to have a chat with anybody to start to understand which sort would be best for them. Because if I look at the ones for, I don't know, Nottingham University Hospital, it's huge. If I look at the one for Bernese Paul, who just achieved Menopause Friendly accreditation, it's actually quite a light document. But there's information in CIPD, actually, have got some good information on menopause generally. We helped them develop that in 2018, and it's still very, very good. So I can put some links together if you wanted me to, Catherine.
Yeah, that would be great, actually, because we will send out recordings, links, documents, contact details, etc. afterwards, so that you've all got that. Might just be worth explaining, actually, because we've talked about menopause in the workplace, but you've also mentioned Henpicked, which has been on some of your slides as well. So just to sort of clarify for people, how those two businesses sort of sit together.
Two businesses sitting together. Well, Henpicked is a community website. It's actually Happiness, Health and Wealth. But it does have a menopause hub. All the resources on henpicked.net, the community, are free. So we run fortnightly lunch and learns that employers or individuals can dial into and get all of the resources there. Menopause in the Workplace is the organisation that does the training within organisations. So and I've been doing that for the last 5 years. So pretty much the same sort of the same people that do the training in both, but Henpicked is a community lifestyle website.
Right.
It's Menopause Workplace that do the training.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. And one last question, I think, because we are running out of time. So thank you, Mags. How do organisations go about getting accredited?
The menopauselifriendly.co.uk is the website, so you can find out more information on there. And there are two levels of joining. For those organisations that have already feel that they've done enough to go for accreditation, can just join as members and then submit their application to the independent panel to assess. Actually, last Friday was one of the independent panel sittings. Or other members join because they're at the start of their journey, and there are a lot of resources. For example, there's a workshop on how to write your menopause policy. It's a 2-hour workshop. You get all of the resources and you get it proofread and signed up for you, through to training and free videos that are available to download and just put on your intranet. You get 3 communication kits every year, one on International Women's Day, one on Menopause Awareness Month, and one around about May. So it makes it easy for you because there's a lot of unique workshops and resources to save you having to make your own all the time.
Sounds good. Very well thought about in advance, and definitely worth using this sort of libraries and literatures. No point reinventing the wheel, but as you say, every company's different and it needs to feel kind of personal to the company, that it fits the sort of style of communication that they have.
Yes, and it's very collaborative in there as well. I would say that the employers that are part of the Menopause Friendly membership, the workshops, and you'll see organisations working together to say, okay, what are we going to do about this? What's our plan going to be for 2022? So you see multinational organisations and small schools all working together in the workshop. So and very generous they are with each other as well. So they do share a lot of resources with each other.
Great. Well, I think we've probably run out of time and we haven't got any questions. So hopefully that's everybody's questions answered. Deborah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just as interesting as the first time I heard it, picked up some more bits that I perhaps missed the first time around. And, you know, certainly for me and for the one group here, you know, it inspires me to make sure that we're really kind of, you know, getting the information together that we need to support people. And just starting those conversations, you know, is really kind of, you know, the main first step, isn't it? So thank you everybody for joining. I hope you've all found it as interesting and as useful as I have. There will be links, etc., coming through. So thank you, Deborah. Let's keep in touch.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a great day, everyone. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Shall I put this video on run so that?
Oh yeah, do that. Yeah, fabulous. Yeah.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining us.
So first of all, thank you very much for applying for Menopause Friendly accreditation. And I'm here today representing all of the independent panel. So we've thoroughly assessed all aspects of your application and the incredible work that you're doing across HSBC UK, First Direct and M&S Bank. It's clear how much you've done to create a culture where it's easy to talk about menopause. You've taken training and communication very seriously with some amazing initiatives, taking menopause knowledge and awareness right out to all aspects of your business. We think the approach to uniforms was absolutely superb. And in relation to the environment, not only have you provided fans for staff that are working within the workplace, but actually you've reached out to those who are working from home as well, which is really exceptional. And you've also trained up your EAP providers. In fact, the independent panel felt that you'd exceeded all of the exacting standards. And so on behalf of the Menopause Friendly independent panel, I'm delighted to confirm that HSBC UK, First Direct and M&S Bank are a menopause friendly employer. So well done. Woo! Woohoo!